Today is all about creating tension. Now, as someone who also really enjoys reading thrillers and mystery novels, I absolutely love tension in a book. Writing tension, however, is not the easiest of tasks, especially in a fantasy setting. In a thriller setting, tension is so easy to come along. Really, it's part of the story because tension, basically defined, is something that leads to suspense. For example, a threat. In fantasy, yes, there are so many opportunities for tension, but not as many as would be in a mystery book, I would say, at least not on the surface. Because from a literature point of view, there are several types of tension. It's really not just, okay, a mystery or murder. It's really not just that. There are several types of tension. There is tension from a relationship. Now, right now, nowadays, most people would hear tension from a relationship and automatically assume I'm talking about sexual tension. But in the same way that there are different forms of relationships, there are different forms of tension in a relationship. Yes, sexual tension can be one of them, but there can also be relationship tension in families, broken familial relationships. Even friendships, strained friendships, there can be tensions there. There can be tension where a more platonic relationship can have that tension of emotional and sexual tension. There can be that, but like I said, there are so many different forms of relationships, so of course there are so many different forms of relational tension. There can also be tension from a task, needing to get something done, and the stress of having that done, and the just everything that leads up to the deadline of that task. There can be so much tension there. Thirdly, there can be tension in suspense, and fourthly, there can be tension and mystery. Those are very, very similar but different in the same way, and there's just so much to say about that. But in terms of looking at it from a literature perspective, those are, I guess, the basic forms of tension. Now, like I said, with thrillers and mystery novels, it just seems easier to create tension, but you definitely can create tension in fantasy and in other forms. For example, romance books, we've heard the different things, or even just contemporary fiction. You can form tension using all the different forms that I previously mentioned. And there are different techniques as well that you can employ. And I'm not going to say I have an exhaustive list of methods that you can use, but these are just the things that I have come across and also things that I have researched and learned as I have been writing. One is definitely to show, not tell. And I know everyone will say, well, Shelley, this is just natural. This is just normal writing. You are meant to aim for show, not tell. But it helps to create tension more than if you would just state. Because in some instances in books, we just need you to tell us. Some books, as we've discussed before, are just overly descriptive, and sometimes we just need you to straight up tell us. But in terms of creating tension, show, not tell, very, very important. So definitely be sure to employ your senses, use your senses. It is also very helpful to use, let's say, panic conjunctions. They'll really, really help to get that tension flowing, and also using very, very short sentences. It kind of just snatches the reader up. The thing is, you learn a lot of these things when you read books because you notice these things. You notice the short sentences, you notice the conjunctions, and you're like, wow, that really did help move the story along or create the tension. And you're like, wow, something so simple had such a great effect. Now, another thing I would say is definitely when trying to create tension is to ensure that it is very, very clear what the stakes are. Ensure that the audience knows what the stakes are from the get, because then you can take pauses in the story. You can build that tension up all the way. Instead of, you can definitely have moments where it's just kind of short tension, but creating tension throughout the entire story is definitely great because you can take breaks where the tension kind of dissipates, and then you remember what the stakes are in the middle or towards the end, and you're still heading for that. So definitely be sure to clarify, make sure what that it is outlined what the stakes are, and also have some form of running clock, whether it be you letting the reader know what day it is, what time it is, if your story takes place in like a day, what year it is. that once again then relates to the stakes, because if you clearly outline the stakes and everything about it, for example, this is the deadline for the stake, then you know, okay, if the deadline is December 1st and we are in March 15th, I know I have more time. Now, as the book progresses and then you get through the months and then you end up in September and you still have no answer to your question, the stakes are increasing. So very, very important if you have some form of, not like a visible clock, but something to let the readers know this is where we're at. This is how close we are to solving our issue, and this is how close we are to getting to the deadline, and so we're stressed. And this is where I really appreciate third person storytelling, and one of the reasons why I think it is so underutilized, and that is such a shame. Using the third person will really help you in creating tension because you can then play with the reader's knowledge. For example, third person, I would say I love third person because it helps the book to be more objective. Instead of being from a first person, which can obviously lead to biased storytelling, even within a story, third person, you can be more objective because you're really just stating what has happened here, what has happened there, da da da. And it's also really employed well if you're doing third person, as well as maybe using multiple perspectives. If you're going to use first person, then use multiple perspectives, because then you can once again play with the reader's knowledge in this and creating tension. Because for example, if you let the reader know something from an objective point of view. For example, the reader has seen that the friend of the protagonist is plotting for the protagonist to die, and that friend is actually the real antagonist all along. Third person storytelling allows you to show the reader that, while the main protagonist has no idea what's happening. That's building tension because you're as a reader, you're watching as the protagonist is clueless and has to go along and has yet to find out his life is in danger or her life is in danger. Once again, also can be done while doing multiple perspectives, because from seeing the different perspectives of everyone, you know who the villain is, you know what the villain's plot is, but then you can also see the protagonist, their side, what they know. And so definitely employing the knowledge or making use of what the readers know and playing that off of what the actual protagonist knows, very great in using tension. Obviously, like I said, this is a non-exhaustive list, and I know there are so many other techniques and tools that people can use to create tension, but those are, like I said, from research and from books I've personally read, just techniques and things I've noticed that really help to get that tension up, get that tension like really intense and developed properly. So definitely do try to use any of these techniques, multiple of these techniques. I don't know. I am definitely trying to use them in my story. Like I said, this is a fantasy story that I'm writing, and so it's not as easy, I think anyway, it's not as easy to create that sense of tension in that, that style of writing. But you never know, because once again, you can create tension with anything as long as you employ as many techniques as possible. With battles, you can create tension. Someone can be near death, someone can be losing that you want to win. So many things can happen that you can use to create tension. Once again, deadlines, really important in creating tension, because you can really just build up to that moment of so yeah, definitely ensure that your story has tension somewhere. And also remember that tension can be internal and external. A lot of the examples I've given, yes, I can admit that a lot of those are external, things that are happening around the characters, things that they are seeing, but it can also be internal. Your protagonist could be going through a lot in their personal lives, so you can choose to use any variety of tension techniques. I think internal tension is something that isn't used as much, so there's definitely space to use that a bit more in stories, because internal tension is sick, because that's something that we go through in life that we don't even address within ourselves. And so having that in a story, one, definitely necessary, but two, it'll be something, I guess, a bit more new to the scene that people aren't used to seeing. That'll be like, okay, that's a bit new. So Yeah, definitely be sure to include tension in your story. Do your best. I'm doing my best. Writing is still hard. It will always be hard. We're going to keep doing it and we're going to keep having fun. But yeah, that's it for today, guys. I will see you tomorrow. Bye.